Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of Book Time with Elvis with me, Mark. And I come to you today with a tag, finally, after all this time. There are a couple of tags I probably should have done before this one because I was tagged in them first. However, I think this one has maybe somewhat of an expiry date on it, as it is the Midyear Freakout Tag, and I was very kindly tagged by Sina over at Beating Around the Books. So there are 13 prompts to this tag, and I can't answer all of them. So I will certainly answer the ones that I can, and just say nothing for the ones that I can't. But let's dive right in, as they say. So the best book you've read so far in 2021, and that for me is without doubt Laurent Benet's HHHH. I thought it was fantastic. I've talked about it before. I won't say too much more about it, but for me it was just great. I don't know whether it added something living in the Czech Republic, former Czechoslovakia, where much of the story takes place, and of course knowing a bit about the history and knowing the people, but I just thought this was fantastic. Such a unique way of writing a historical novel, and it was, just really great. So definitely is the best book I have read so far in 2021. The second prompt is, what's the best sequel you've read so far in 2021? I haven't read many. I've only read two, and they're not really sequels. I guess they are sequels, but they're not following straight on from the first book. I think one of them would be The Fortune of War by Patrick O'Brian, which I believe is book number 6 in the Aubrey Maturin series. I really enjoyed that one. I found it quite amusing, especially with all the dressings up and stuff to try and escape captivity and do different things. It was very enjoyable. And the other one that I quite enjoyed, which was a sequel to actually this one is a sequel following on from the first book, a sequel to Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which was The Honourable Schoolboy by John le Carré. I read that back in February, and it was quite long, and it seems a little bit outside the story. I heard the first and third books, you could kind of read them on their own, but I enjoyed The Honourable Schoolboy. I spent a lot of time in Hong Kong myself, so it was nice to kind of read a book that was set there. So those are the two I will choose for this. Number 3, a new release you haven't read yet but want to. Well, for this I'm going over to non-fiction, and this is a book called World Travel by the late Anthony Bourdain, and finished off by someone called Laurie Walliver. It's supposed to be a guidebook that gives kind of practical advice, what to see and do in the world, as Anthony Bourdain did. And I used to love his documentary programs and following him along. And, it was really, really tragic the way he passed away, taking his own life. And the book itself I see has got kind of mixed reviews, perhaps because it was finished off by somebody else. But, I liked him enough to still want to read it. So for me, this would be the new release that I haven't read yet, but I would really like to. And I suppose I should really buy it first, and then I'll be able to do so. Number 4, the most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I don't really keep my pulse on, what's coming up and looking out for new releases. I think there's a new release, perhaps, of Alexander McCall Smith's Portuguese Irregular Verb series. I think that was this year, and for me, certainly, it is anticipated because I really enjoy that series. But I can't say there's like a must-see event that I'm waiting for, that other people know about, because I haven't got a clue what's coming up or not. And I like the surprise of that. Sometimes it's really nice when, I've read an author and then, years later I'm searching, I think, they've written 2 more books in that time, or, there's another book in this so-called trilogy that's now, quintology, if that's the right word. Yeah, so we'll see. The next one is number 5. Biggest disappointment. I have to say nothing really this year. I suppose I could say I was a little... biggest disappointment, I suppose, of the year, yes. But it wasn't super disappointing. In the end, I kind of enjoyed the book. But I would say Cold Comfort Farm by Stella Gibbons, and Summer at Cozy Reading with Quaker Cats will probably agree with me on this one, that it was perhaps not what we thought it would be. It was described as extremely funny, and in the end it was amusing at times, but it certainly wasn't the kind of laugh out loud humor that I would have maybe expected from the way people talked about it. Certainly not from me anyway. And I love Woodhouse, Jerome K. Jerome, these kind of authors, but I didn't get it with this book. I enjoyed the story in the end, but it took some time. I would say it took till about halfway before I started really getting into it. Okay, number 6, the biggest surprise. Well, the biggest surprise for me is Jane Austen. This is Jane Austen July. I thought I would take part. I've never read any Jane Austen before. I've always been a bit like, it's chick lit. I shouldn't say that, but I thought, it's girly stuff. I'm not really interested in all this. Oh, Mr. Darcy, la la la, I'm going to faint. This kind of stuff, which is what I thought it would be. And maybe some of it is like that. I've only started reading Northanger Abbey, and I really like it. I'm really surprised by how readable it is, how entertaining it is. I'm surprised by Austen's dry sense of humor, and I'm really enjoying it. So I'm halfway through that, and I will definitely be reading some of her others. So she's a very pleasant surprise to me. Number 7, your favorite new author. Well, Jane Austen aside, I'm not going to judge just on half of one book yet. I will go with 2 French authors, actually. And I already mentioned HHHH by Laurent Binet, and I would say that I want to read as well his other 2 books, which is The 7 Function of Language, which I mentioned before on this channel, and the third one, Civilizations, as well. So he's definitely one of my favorite new authors on the basis of one book alone, so we'll see. The other one is Antoine Lorrain, and he's on the basis of 2 books I've read of his this year, The President's Hat and French Rhapsody. Not great works of literature by any means, but just a lot of fun, whimsical fun, that I could easily see made into a charming, funny, see them easily made into charming, funny French films. I've talked about them before, so I won't talk about them too much. But The President's Hat, the idea that the President Mitterrand leaves his hat in a restaurant, and somebody finds it, and it changes his life, and then the hat passes to somebody else, and so on and so on. And it was charming. And the other one is French Rhapsody, which is about a GP in present-day Paris who receives a notification from the post office that he was sent a letter 30-something years ago, which was actually the offer of a record contract for his band. And then he sets about trying to track down the demo tape and the other members of the band from 30-something years ago. And it's also good fun, and I will definitely read his other books. I would be showing them to you, but I read them electronically, so I'm not going to whip the Kindle out and try and go through all that kind of stuff. The next one, number 8, newest fictional crush. Don't have one yet. Perhaps it could be one of the charming ladies from Northanger Abbey, or another book later on in the year, but at the moment I don't really have a fictional crush this year anyway. In previous years, I'm not one who... No, I don't know. Yes, maybe Effie Kern in the David Downing Station series. She's a cool woman that I would have a crush on. She's a film star in the interwar and early war years in Berlin, and she kind of gets involved with the resistance and espionage, and she's a tough cookie. I like her. I could say that I would have a crush on her for sure. Number 9, newest favorite character. Don't have one really. I looking around, I do read quite a lot of non-fiction as well, which makes it difficult to come up with someone like that. But at the moment, the fictional books I read, a few of them have been, a couple of them, as we saw, were sequels, so they're not particularly new, and they would have started with them last year. But at the moment, no, I don't have a favourite character at the moment. Sorry for that. Number 10, a book that made you cry. Well, I'm not sure I would say cry like, sobbed uncontrollably, but a book that certainly allowed more than one or two tears to escape from my tear ducts would be HHHH, because, it's a very moving story, and, especially the massacre at the village of Lidice, and also the last stand of Gabčík and Kubiš in the church in Prague. It's well written, and it's movingly written, and just to see kind of how people are prepared to pay the ultimate price for the love of their country and their countrymen, perhaps. It was very moving. Another book that kind of moved me, actually depressed me rather than made me cry, was The Sixth Extinction by Elizabeth Cole, but just because it's very upsetting to see how we are kind of self-destructing, really, and nobody seems, nobody who can seems bothered about doing anything about it, which is very sad. A book that made you happy, I'll go with two of those. One I mentioned already previously, The President's Hat by Antoine Lorraine. I found it charming, whimsical, and it did make me chuckle. Actually, the book, one of the books I'm currently reading, The Ascent of Rumdoodle by W. Bowman. It's a short book, a parody about the ascent of Everest, but in this case it's a mountain called Rumdoodle, and it's like 40,500 feet high. It's funny. It has made me laugh out loud funny. I went for a coffee this morning and I was reading some of it in the cafe, and I'm sure people were looking at me because I was chuckling to myself. And another one is the most recent book in this series, unless the newest one's been published already and I don't know it, by Alexander McCall Smith, the Portuguese Irregular Verb series, which is Unusual Uses for Audible. These books always cheer me up. They're a kind of parody of German intellectuals and academics, and the main character, he just gets himself in some really bizarre and amusing situations. So of course he's not usually aware of it, which makes it even funnier. Number 12, the most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received. Well, I have to say I've received a few, and I talked about them yesterday actually in my birthday haul video. If I have to choose just one, then it would of course be the folio edition of Three Men in a Boat, which, as I say, I did show in more detail yesterday. But just to show you the front cover, it's lovely, really lovely cloth bound book, and as it's one of my favourite books of all time, it's extra special for me to have something like that, and that it's so beautiful and pleasing to the eye. So what books, number 13, what books do you need to read by the end of this year? Well, I have made a few commitments. I'm in Jane Austen July, and I do want to read more than one. So the other one I would like to read this month will be Emma, which I heard is really good. I started with Northanger Abbey because it was shorter. So I thought if I didn't like it, then or didn't like her, then I wouldn't have wasted so much time. But so far, so very good. Another thing is I'm doing a buddy read with a few people. So I guess it's a group read now with some at Cozy Reading Quaker Cat, Vin at Revenant Reads, Steve Donahue, I think, wants to be involved, Michael K. Vaughan, and David, I'm terribly sorry, I can't remember the channel name. But yeah, a couple of other people. We're going to read next month Herodotus, the Histories. I've read an older translation of this. This is a newer translation by Tom Holland. So I'm really looking forward to rereading this, but reading this particular version for the first time. With my buddies from the Reading Europe 2021 challenge we've been doing, we will probably read, or a lot of us will read together, 3 Men in a Boat. So for me, of course, it's a reread, but I look forward very much to doing it, and especially to hearing what people who are coming to it for the first time think about it. So I think that'd be a lot of fun. And of course, if anyone wants to join in any of these, just let us know in the comments. It would be great to have you. I'm doing a buddy read with Matthew at Nightbird Books of a Czech author, Joachim Topol, and it's City Sister Silver, and it seems like it's going to be a very challenging book. I was reading about it, and one other well-known Czech writer, Ivan Klima, he described it as a first attempt at expressing in a profound and extremely individual way the feelings of an entire generation. And apparently the central character Potok, which actually means stream in Czech, I don't know if that has any bearing on it, is in a sense embodying the simultaneous feelings of alienation and enormous possibilities of a young adult at the time of the Velvet Revolution and its aftermath. It goes on to say this is a complex, frequently dark, and often deliberately confusing novel, with the English translation described by Samuel Thomas as a difficult experience for a reader unfamiliar with Czech culture, but beautiful and consistently inventive. So I think that sounds challenging, but also very interesting, and I would hope after 9 years living here that I have enough understanding to be able to get through it. Matthew himself lives in Poland, so I'm sure the shared experience of these countries post-communism, there would be perhaps some similarities there, maybe. I hope to do a buddy read at some point, no date yet to be set, of The Lost Pianos of Siberia with Misa at Books and Sushi. This looks a really interesting read, and it's the story really of Siberia's exiles, and the fact that all across Siberia there are these remote and isolated lost pianos, and I think it will be something very interesting indeed. So Jason at Old Blues Chapter and Verse, I believe, is doing a group read of Oscar and Lucinda. I think it's in November, so I'm going to join that. So that's definitely another one I would like to read this year, so I think that will also be fun. It's actually a reread, but I read it quite a long time ago and don't remember all that much about it, though it might come back to me, of course, once I start reading. In addition to these, I would like to read more books by Czech and Central European authors. So, for example, The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera. I need to read it, definitely. Anything by Bohumil Hrabal. So this one, for instance, The Little Town Where Time Stood Still. He's, of course, famous for writing I Served the King of England and Closely Observed Trains, but I would like to read a lot more of him because I find him very entertaining. Excuse me, it seems my stomach is grumbling. I don't know if that was picked up on the microphone or not, but it is approaching lunchtime here, so that could be the reason. Apologies for that. And also something like maybe The War with Newts by Karel Čapek, and any others really. But also I would like very much to explore some of the books and authors that my fellow participants in the Reading Europe 2021 challenge read. Dickens as well is somebody I would like to read more of this year, but as a mood reader, my reading plans for my solo reads, I will commit to something, I won't back out of it, but for my solo reads, I could change at any moment, of course. And this is a primary reason why you don't see many monthly TBRs on this channel yet, because I don't really know myself what I will choose to read from one day to the next when it's just me reading. But as I say, I'm very happy to commit to any buddy reads. And once again, if anyone wants to join in anything, or if anyone has any books they would like to read and they would like to read it with me, let me know. Put me in the comments. I'm quite happy to to read anything with anyone if they should so wish. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen. I'm sorry it's quite long, the video. Well, certainly it's longer than my recent ones, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Take care, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. I hope it's as lovely where you are as I am. All the best. Bye bye.